class Friday or next Monday for Easter break. So our quiz will be over the weekend, right? Have it maybe due by next Tuesday, so give you a break. For our cases, we kind of dismissed the cases for the semester. I didn't find them to be that useful. We already have discussions and things like that. But we're winding down. We're getting close to the end. How's everybody feel? Excited to be done? I hear you. Who's gonna do an MBA after? One person. You going directly
Yeah,
straight through? What are you gonna focus on?
digital marketing is gonna be my specialization.
Okay, awesome. You wanna focus more on like social media
Yeah.
part of it? What about the business?
That'll be a little side job.
Okay, side
Yeah. My dad's gonna be retiring in a couple years, so maybe after that.
Okay, does he really like wanna start that, or is this more
Yeah.
you?
Yeah, he wants to, yeah.
Okay.
So probably, he retires in 2 years, so probably once that kind of settles down,
Yeah,
he'll have more time on his hands.
maybe you could at least plan.
Yeah.
Or write a plan or something.
Exactly.
Or at least a work it. Maybe we could talk about a little bit related to supply chain in that aspect of kind of your type of business. Anybody else? MBA? No? I'm gonna stop at,
Not
You wanna
right
do it?
after, like a year or two.
give it some time, get a little bit more work experience,
Mhm.
cause you got a job ready for you, right? Okay. What would you wanna, if you did go, what would you want to focus on?
Risk management.
Risk management, okay. So you want the financial sector. Yeah, there's an, you ever seen the movie Margin Call? Okay, excellent movie. It's about mortgage-backed securities, the kind of financial crisis, the housing crisis that kind of destroyed our economy. So it deals with a lot of risk management stuff, like packaging, they were packaging bundles of mortgages, millions and millions of them, right? And reselling them. But eventually they were kind of worth nothing, right? People couldn't pay the mortgages back anyway on an individual basis, so. Interesting movie, maybe one day I'll show a clip of it, a short clip. It's one of the best sort of like board meeting, movies. All right, has anyone completed their organizational structure? No? All right, well, maybe we can have a few of those next week. All right, we're gonna get into supply chain design, all right? Part of the class, one of the major components is dealing with supply chain, right? What does that mean to you? When someone says, hey, what is the supply chain? Like, what's the benefits of that? Like, how does that affect the operations of a business, and ultimately, what we're trying to do is create value for the customer and more profit for ourselves as business owners, right, or managers, or employees, or whatnot. How does that all kind of, what's sort of the emphasis or importance of this supply chain?
Probably the process of getting the supplies or inputs into the factory.
Okay, so you're saying a factory, getting stuff into the factory, right? Is that the end game in the supply chain, sort of, idea of a supply chain?
I guess so.
Okay.
Just for me, I guess the supply chain would be like getting the raw materials to the factory, going through the process of creating the product, and then getting the product out. So like the end game would be to get the product in the hands of consumers, and that whole thing is like the supply chain.
Okay. Yeah, I think both of you are right. I mean, that's definitely part. Anyone else have anything contribute? So you think of supply chain design, ultimately thinking of all the external processes and external forces and external relationships versus all your internal controls and customer demand. So all that to say is you're looking at the entire process of getting things. That doesn't have to be raw materials, because if you're a service provider, those are not raw materials, right? So you can say computer programming or software, getting new software or coding or anything to make your product more efficient. Or if you're any other service provider, you can say maybe even the bank, you're trying to decrease the number of steps it takes to do something for a customer, right? Or make something more efficient. But you're looking at how to get something, A, first, to the organization. It's at the organization. B, to the employees, bless you. Right? Maybe B, from organization to the managers, then managers to employees, your workers, and then eventually to the end customer, right? So you're saying, all this, why does this play such a major role in how we do business? Well, we say at some point we may be capped in terms of what we could charge, right? At some point we may be capped on what we could charge to a customer. Therefore, you're like, well, what else could we do so that this business does not fail? So it's extremely critical to the success and failure of the business, because typically, you could hit a ceiling on what you could charge customers on that, right? And now you say, well, how are we gonna make a profit, right? So you start looking at all of these processes and say, well, we lack an efficiency in either cost, right? The cost of goods sold, what we purchase from suppliers that we can either, we can buy from suppliers or either make ourselves from some original raw materials, right? And how that translates into creating more profit, right? How do we make that process more efficient so we can either lower the cost for ourselves, maybe we can make the efficiencies better in terms of how we even produce something or get something to our employees, right? We're always looking, so it never ever stops, right? So it has strategic importance, right? And so today we're gonna look at maybe the nature of all of that. We'll look at even like break-even analysis, so you can see at what point you're reaching some sort of efficiency to where anything beyond that, you can finally make a profit, right? You can finally be above baseline. Then we'll look at supply chain. Are you responsive to it? Meaning that, hey, I have to react now because I have orders coming in. Or do I buy the orders all before, right? Because this is a more efficient process to get everything in inventory before people start ordering, right? Because maybe time is an issue for our customers, right? Maybe quality is not the big thing here, and maybe it's the amount of time, the quickness we can get to it, right? So we say maybe our strategy here in supply chain design is in terms of having things ready to go so that they're able to be shipped out or able to be quickly made and shipped out. Or we say, hey, we're more maybe customized, right? We get the order first, our customers doesn't necessarily care about the time, and that's quality is our strategy, right? So the customer is willing to wait. So we have to think about all of this and say, well, what is the best approach so that we can maximize our return? What we'll talk about here is return on assets, right? Yes, it's an investment to buy things to make your operations run, but in essence, anything you're holding in inventory or for a customer is an asset, or is an asset on the books. So when we look at return on assets, how what you're doing in that process either can be a liability to your operations or be very advantageous in terms of creating more viable assets. Then we'll look at make or buy decision. So think of the barbecue situation, right? You say, hey, we got choices, right? Maybe we should skin cat. You say, maybe someone produces excellent barbecue already. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. So you have to decide what kind of business you're in, right? Even for the cafe, you could say, oh man, I wanna do, organic grounds from organically responsible, sustainable, blah, 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 right? I mean, like, you find out that that's not necessarily profitable, right, based on some other factors. So you have to decide, at the end of the day, what's going to be profitable. the ideas will fail. Right? There'll be excellent ideas at the beginning, they'll run, the business will run, you'll start making revenues. Revenues are not profits, right? Profits completely different. Be above your baseline, right? And so you think, well, okay, for the barbecue, do we just buy it somewhere else? It's already prepared. Do we buy it from a supplier that does it excellent? And we sell it and add some value so that the customer gives us extra money? Or someone says, no, I want to do it from scratch. Now, if you're doing it from scratch, you say, well, it's very time consuming. Time is money, right? How is that gonna affect your bottom line? Is this a long-term success? Is it short-term success or long-term success? So when you're thinking about businesses in general, what happens is if you are a business person, your mind frame shifts about what you think is good, like a good natured thing to do, or sort of how you imagine the ideal scenarios of your business to be, versus you become a business person. You become a business person, it's all about efficiencies and create more value for the customer, right? We say divide that pie. The pie doesn't change, right? So we say, well, barbecue food, you got what you got. Now, how do you create value? How do you divide that pie? Where do you charge extra money, right? You say, hey, well, we get it from a supplier already, and therefore we eliminate some time. It may be actually cheaper to get the final product to the customer. They're gonna like that, we'll sell more of it, whatever. If we say the coffee shop, we think of, hey, all right, excellent idea, but guess what? People lounge and chill in here, and they're on their laptops like you guys, and they're here all day, and they bought their coffee 3 hours ago. Like, from a business perspective, it's that efficient, right? So we have to think about like these ways in which you're doing business. Like, well, maybe you say things have changed. COVID has happened, now it's changed our behavior. So if COVID has happened, changed our behavior, everybody wants to drive through. We become extremely like lazy, right? Chipotle didn't have drive-throughs. There were no Chipotle drive-throughs. Now they're starting to pop up, okay? There were no wait outside in the parking lot at these designated parking spots will bring the food out with you. That didn't exist. On a grand scale, it didn't exist, right? So we say, well, these companies have to make adjustments. And if you say, well, I didn't want to because that's not what I envisioned for my business, right? And I say, you're no longer a business person, right? So we have to think of these ways. And this is what supply chain is all about. It's like our relationships with the people we get the stuff from to give to our customers, right? Be able to deliver that value to the customers based on what we're doing in all of that process, right? Make more efficient design and even our assembly lines, or, if you're in a food business, how to get things from the server to the table quicker, right? Even hiring more cooks, is that a faster thing? That does deliver more value? Does it make it more cheaper on our costs, right? So we have to think of all these different ways. Then we'll look at mass customization, right? Mass customization, and why there's value in that. In terms of mass customization, who could think of some industries or markets or business that participate in mass customization? Mass customization, yes. Cars. Some, right? They say some cars. Mass customization could be, actually many of them. Because now when they switch their models, you're able to go on the website now and select your interior, color, all these different things. So I would say most of the cars have now participated in mass customization, right? Because they'll allow you to customize, obviously for a premium, for a charge. And you think of that process. You're like, well, where's the profit coming from? Well, the profit's coming, they're charging you a lot to do that, for each different component, right? Each different grade of type of vehicle that you want, right? Each different color of leather that you selected, and each different performance enhancing thing that you may want on your vehicle, right? You're being charged, and so the companies have identified that if we do this, this sort of practice, we can upcharge and eventually we can have a profit in some way, Instead of just saying, hey, here's a whole generic car, no customization, it is what it is, it's gonna cost what it's gonna cost. Eventually, I say you become restricted. You're restricted to the cost, right? Because people have identified the cost, they're not gonna pay more now. Why would they pay more? They all know what the cost is. So then you have to find a new strategy, and that new strategy is sort of adding that mass customization process. Once again, just slicing that pie, a little bit more. Right? Same car, just slicing it up. Anyone else could think of mass customization market? Yes.
Oh, I'm not sure if this one industry would come to that, but, Build-A-Bear Workshop does come to mind. Build-A-Bear Workshop,
Oh, Build-A-Bear, tell us about it.
because, I went there once for, a friend's birthday party years ago, but, everyone who probably knows about it knows that you create your own teddy bear and you can add, special items for your bear, and that obviously creates, well, more revenue because you have to pay for all the stuff, to customize your bear.
Okay, so the values and the features,
Yeah.
right? And features deal with people wanting to feel special and not have the same thing that everybody has, right? We all kind of may take a pride in something that other people don't have in some way. Right, so Build-A-Bear is excellent. Think of home builders. We could say, hey, we go to this development site, right? And they get 300 homes, right? Model homes. And they have 3 models that people walk in and take a look. You're like, okay, this one, this suits my purpose. This one's a little bit more expensive, but I kind of get more stuff. Or the third one could be add your own features. What do you want? Here's a list. Tell us everything you want, right? And we'll put all the costs in that, and now we'll build it for you. Instead of just saying, well, which one will make more money? We just build 300 homes and they're ready to be sold. We don't do anything extra. The electric, the plumbing, aesthetics, we leave it as is. Or is there more profit capabilities in terms of, we build homes that have a shell, has all the wiring components that it needs, but allowing people to add unique features that suits their own lifestyle, that's way more profitable, right? So those are part of it. And then, so you say, well, there's a challenge in that. The challenge is, okay, the extra stuff, the features, where's it being held? Okay, it might be held in inventory. Now we have to look at the data of what do people like most out of the different options we get, right? Think of Build-A-Bear. We look at the data and say, out of all the features we provide and all the sales, what sells the most? Now we gotta kind of market more to that, because it sells the most, it makes the most money, right? Maybe we have some features out there that people are not really interested in. We have to eliminate that and add some new stuff. So you think of it never stops, it's continuous. But, this is extremely important as a strategy in planning in terms of either you're going to be a long-term successful business or short-term successful business. One of the other things could be financial services, right? How is mass customization within a financial service?
That'd be same with like all the different types of credit cards that you can be getting, like the different
Yeah.
rewards and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. You say mass customization, like, well, I fly a lot, so I need a credit card with a lot of rewards for travel, right? Some people say I never travel, but I do shop a lot, right? So I need a lot of rewards or cash back on purchases, right? So the credit card industry also has introduced this mass customization. Design your own credit card, right? Put whatever you want to on the front. We'll charge them an extra fee. The cost of us doing that is, extremely small. But those are just some other examples of how this all plays out. All right, so supply chain is an investment effort. It contributes to either you're gonna be successful or a failure in the long term. It's extremely critical. It makes your whole entire strategy come to life, how you design this process, of how all the processes from beginning to end kind of come together. And we'll talk about too, like, degrees of freedom, like, you know, when you're first designing something, you may feel that you have all the liberty to sort of just go all out, but then you find that, there's still some restrictions and boundaries you haven't thought about in terms of your competition, laws, rules, and regulation, availability of suppliers to give you what you actually need, what those cost, availability of, real estate, you know, where you actually be located, things of that nature, right? So we'll look at some of those degrees of freedom. All right, so we explained strategic importance of supply chain, we kind of went through that, identify the nature of it, right, for service providers as well as manufacturers, and calculate the critical supply chain performance measures. So we'll look at some performance measures to say, how are we doing in terms of these operations and what we can improve on? And we'll explain how efficient supply chains differ from responsive ones. Remember, we said responsive ones are ones that are trying to catch up past customers' orders, right? We're playing catch up to get inventory and to supply the orders. Whereas maybe more efficient processes have things already predetermined, right? We already have things already ordered because we are accurately assessing demand, right? Accurately projecting what we're gonna be selling, right? So we'll be left, little of waste will be left over. And we talked about mass customizations and its implications, and analyze a make or buy decision for break-even analysis. You know, most business in the first few years don't make a profit. It's, you know, really depending on what industry you're in, so you have to think about the long term. Typically, companies, when you come out with a 5-term projection, first 2 years you're not making money. So if you're even presenting to a bank or a venture capitalist or, you know, angel financer or something like that, you have to start showing at what point you actually will make a profit, right? Because first couple of years you're probably losing money, or you're playing catch up, or you may hit a break even. Right? All right, so what is supply chain design, right? Design a firm's supply chain to meet the competitive priorities of a firm's operation and strategy. All that's to say is you have competitors, they're in your same market, they're making exactly the same products, they have exactly the same store, right? They're in the fishing business, and they got fishing lines and all these things. What are you doing to compete, right? Maybe they're ahead of you and their processes are even way more efficient. How can you start to beat them out? What sort of value added thing can you introduce? Or how you could beat them out in terms of being more efficient than what they're doing. All right, we're gonna identify external competitive and internal organizational pressures such as dynamic sales values, which means things are unpredictable, right? Sales of certain things go up or down depending on the product, right? Maybe some things you sell don't sell that much. Maybe other things you sell, they sell great. And now you have to figure out how to balance all the different values of things being sold. All right, customer service and quality expectations. You could say, hey, customer service is maybe quick, right? You want things to be extremely quick and responsive to what people need done to fix their issue. Or it needs to be quality. You want things done perfectly, and maybe, you know, the quickness is not as important. Service and production proliferation. So you think of just the variations, right? The variations in all the things that go into either whether you're in a service or you're actually building the product. Right? How an assembly line is constructed, the number of people you have on it, in service, you know, how well you're providing things to your customers and how quick. And then emerging markets, we say things change, right? New markets evolve, right? Uber evolved, right? You know, taxi cabs are almost non-existent at this point. There's new ways of doing things. It's getting quicker and faster, which means you need to change your operations constantly. You need to revise these things. So things are emerging. We need to capitalize on it. All right, so creating an effective supply chain, right? So we said we need to link the services and products with customers, suppliers, and supply chain processes. Everything needs to be linked together, Everything needs to be in some sort of harmony or balance for things to run smoothly, right? So you have to have good relationships with your suppliers. You have to have good expectations on when they will deliver things to you, right? And if you can make adjustments and have things, that you really need now come in quicker than normal, right? You need to look at your customers, their expectations, and then the whole process. So say linking services to products with internal processes. So you're looking at the internal process, your employees, how are they assembled? What do they do? What are their role in the organization? How do they get things done, right? Those are the processes that are internal, right? What are your budget constraints, right? How do the various departments communicate with each other? And then you're linking services or products with external supply chain. So now you understand how your internal mechanisms will work. You're looking on the outside for people to give you the things that you need to be sold. And how are, that process is kind of synergized into what you got going on internally. Right? We say it's all this is some sort of hybrid of merging things together so we create some sort of harmony. Right? And we say, well, here will be the optimal sort of efficiency, right? Or effectiveness. All right, supply chain efficiency curve. So we're looking at total cost within our supply chain, and we're looking at the actual performance, right? And we say here, okay, we can improve performance beyond here. Well, let's start here. Our red curve here is the new supply chain efficiency curve with changes in design and execution, where our blue one is our old one, right? So our original supply chain design. So we say our original supply chain design. Here we could either reduce the cost, right, to make things more improved. And here we say area of improved operations, right? And then we say this, over here, this dot will be inefficient. As well, to the left of this curve right here, right? So anything beyond to the left will be highly inefficient, right? So we either wanna get more to the right or stay within the zone right here. So either we said we could reduce costs to be more efficiency, or we could actually create a whole new supply chain by having changes in design and execution. So we look at all the processes, internal, external processes, and therefore we can improve the performance here. All right, so supply chain for a florist. So we're looking at flowers on demand florists, right? So we're looking at all the things that kind of go into it. Here we said we have maintenance services. Maybe we have someone that can clean up the shop, right? Keep things pretty clean with all the flowers, the debris, the water, all the things that kind of go into that. Then we said we have our packaging component, right? We say, well, how are things assembled? How quickly are they assembled? Where are the boxes or the containers in which things need to be assembled, located, right? Do we have things on inventory for our packaging, our labels? Then we have our FedEx delivery service, right? How reliable is this? What are we charging customers to have this service, right? And does it meet what we're actually doing? Right? Is it harming the business or hurting the business in order to have FedEx? Next, we're looking at flowers themselves, local and international. So we want to create a unique blend of flowers. We either source some that are, local to the area, to the region, or we're sourcing out some very intricate, complex, and unique flowers, right? To go into maybe bouquets and things of that nature. And then we have our local delivery service. So we're saying, hey, we get our FedEx delivery service and we got local. Maybe we have two different services, either for the customer, right? We give them two options, or either for ourselves. Maybe there's some things we don't need to have so quickly. So in order to not take on the cost of having everything FedEx, we may also source out some things and have them delivered locally, right? Using other methods of transportation. We have our arrangement materials, right? So if we're doing bouquets and arrangements, we need materials in order to arrange those things, right? So we need scissors, and paper, and other things like that. And here they're saying we need an internet service, right? probably all of our systems are, automated, taking in orders, our inventory, all of that's on an automated system, right? And so we got our computers and then the internet. And here we got our home customers and commercial customers. So we say, well, okay, we got customers that are just individuals, right? And they come in or they go online, they place orders for bouquets and what have you. And then we got commercial. People are doing large scale events, weddings, event planners, event management, things of that nature. You know, we need those customers as well too. Here we're given an illustration of a manufacturing firm, right? So we're looking at different things. We're looking at raw materials, some components, major sub-assemblies, assembly, distribution centers, and finally retail where we'll sell. So we're looking all the way from sourcing out raw materials to finally getting things out to the customer themselves. So we got 3 tiers, right? At the before we do like major assembly, well, before we do actual assembly. So we can say, hey, all right, we're sourcing raw materials from Poland, and then USA, Canada, Australia, and Malaysia. So we get 5 different countries we're sourcing raw materials from. Tier 2, right? So we say, okay, the materials coming in from Poland, the raw materials coming in, they have to be grouped up with the components, right? And the components we get from Germany. Right? And so we say here with these other raw materials, now we have to kind of mix them with the components we have in Mexico and the US. Here we have raw materials matching up with components that we have in China. From there, we have a major sub-assembly. So we got these components and raw materials, now they need to be sub-assembled. So they'll be assembled in Germany, Mexico, and the USA, right? Which are all up here. From there, we have our actual manufacturer, the person who's gonna add the final touches, right? That will be in the United States. So we have things coming from Germany, Mexico, and USA going directly to the USA to be finally assembled. Our final assembly is in the USA, right? All right, now we have to distribute this final assembled product, right? So we have distribution centers. We got 2 of them. One will be in the USA, one will be Ireland. Because you say maybe we're servicing a European customer base, we're servicing customers in Europe, and we're servicing customers in the United States. Right, so we got 2 places, USA and Ireland. Here in the USA, our distribution centers go to our retail locations, which is one is on the East Coast, which is maybe in New York. Then we got another retail location, say maybe Los Angeles, right? Here, after we distribute to Ireland, Ireland will send over to our retail locations in Eastern Europe and one over in Western Europe. So say maybe Eastern Europe, we may have one in Berlin, right? Western Europe, we may have one in my favorite country, which is France. So either, you know, France or Germany. All right, some measurements. All right, some measurements in supply chain. All right, so we talked about aggregate inventory, right? The total sort of whole inventory value. How we go about measuring that? So we look at the number of units of items in item A, typically on hand. We multiply that by the value of each unit. So we're taking what we have on hand, multiply it by its value. Right? The value could be what it costs us, right, to buy from a supplier. And we add that to the number of units of item B typically on hand, multiply it by the value of that unit. We're just basically looking at 2 units, different items, and what they actually cost us, right? That's gonna be in that inventory. And so we'll look at the weeks of supply that we need to have these things on hand in order to meet customer demand. And we'll look at average aggregate inventory value, right? Which is basically what it's gonna cost us to hold this inventory, what we pay for it. And then we'll look at the weekly sales at cost, right? We'll divide those 2. And we look at our inventory turnover. Inventory turnover is, how quickly are you replenishing your inventory? How quickly do you have to get new inventory from, right? Different orders. So we'll look at annual sales at cost, right? What we sell in a year, and we divide that by our average aggregate inventory value. Right? Once again, is what is it costing us to purchase those things? All right, here they give us an example. The Eagle Machine Company averaged $2 million in inventory last year. The cost of goods sold was $10 million, right? So the breakout of raw materials, work in process, and finished goods inventories on the following slide. The best inventory turnover in the company's industry is 6 turns per year, right? So you say the best one, the most efficient is when they only had to make orders 6 turns. If the company has 52 business weeks per year, how many weeks of supply were held in inventory? What was the inventory turnover, and what should the company do? So here we say we're looking at the cost of goods sold. It said we have $10 million worth of cost of goods sold. And then we got 52 weeks in a year for operations. So we got 5 different item numbers. We look at the average level of each, and we look at the unit value, what it cost us to purchase those things. And we'll look at what that total value is, right? So we said we got $2 million in total value of inventory on hand. So the average aggregate inventory value of $2 million translates to 10.4 weeks of supply. So we have almost 10 and a half weeks of supply in order to satisfy our customers each time we have to reorder. And supply of 5 times per year calculated as follows. Weeks of supply, we say, we took that $2 million of aggregate inventory value, we took that $10 million cost of goods sold, multiplied by 52 weeks in operations in a year, that gives us 10.4 weeks. Number of inventory turns, we said we take the 10 million of cost of goods sold, we take the average aggregate inventory of 2 million, which means we have 5 turns per year. All that's to say that we can measure this stuff to see how efficient we are in actually holding inventory and providing them to our customers, and how we should maybe, what should we do in order to improve that process? Maybe we want to get it down to 3 turns a year or 2 turns a year. All right, some other financial measures. We got total revenue, cost of goods sold, operating expenses, cash flow, working capital, and return on assets. All right, so we're looking at how supply chain decisions can affect return on assets. Remember I said before, is you're buying all of this stuff to be sold. So you need to have a good return on what you're actually purchasing to be sold to customers. Right? You need to improve your cost of goods sold. So we're looking at total revenue, right? Increased sales through better customer service. You can say that's one way. Right? Hey, we got a marketing department, we need to increase our sales. So what can we do with marketing in order to get more people to come in to buy what we have? We say, okay, that's one way of creating better total revenue, increasing total revenue. And then cost of goods sold, we said reduce cost of transportation and purchase materials. Do we have to get it from the supplier? Is there a supplier located even closer to where we are? So it'd be cheaper for us to get, or should we just change suppliers altogether and come up with a new cost structure in order to reduce the cost of goods sold? And then operating expenses, reduce fixed expenses by reducing overhead associated with supply chain operations, right? We say, well, okay, we know how we operate, we know the different processes in place. What can we eliminate in that process? Are the buildings too big? Could we get smaller square footage? Are we using too much electricity? Are we using too much gas? Are we using too much of anything? Too much fuel for our vehicles? Too many people, on board to actually produce what we need? And all that translating to net income, which is improved profits with greater revenue and lower costs, right? So that's the major one, is improving profits with greater revenue or lowering your costs. Now over here we say net cash flow. improve positive cash flow by reducing lead times and backlogs. Right, so we say we can improve process by either making things faster and how either we produce something or a service we provide, or making more efficient process altogether, right? Stopping all the backlogs and things that kind of clog up the process itself. Or we say inventory, we can increase inventory turnover. So one way of creating more return on assets is just focusing on the efficiency of having higher, more efficient turnover on what you order to satisfy customers' demands. So from net cash flows, we say working capital, right? Reduce working capital by reducing inventory investment, lead times and backlogs. And then we say from there we have fixed assets, reduce the number of warehouses through improved supply chain design. Right, so maybe we got too many warehouses, we may need to get rid of a few of those. And that leads to total assets, achieve the same or better performance with fewer assets. Right, so achieve the same exact thing, just doing it with lesser things. Right? And that all leads to return on assets, which is increased ROA, but higher net income and fewer total assets. Right, so they're giving you two ways, right? You either improve profits with greater revenue and lower costs, or achieve the same better performance with fewer assets. And that will be leading to having a better return on assets. All right, some strategic options for supply chain design. We get efficient supply chains. We say make to stop, right? The rest of these are responsive, which are basically to order. So you either say you have, well, assemble to order, you got make to order. What's like make to order? What's a market that's a make to order?
Like custom suits.
Yeah. Custom suits, right? Make to order, right? You come in, we'll fit you, and now you pick out the materials what you want, right? We get all that, and we make the entire suit from scratch. And you say, well, what's the value in that? The value is that you get absolutely what the customer wants, and they're willing to pay a large amount of money for that, as opposed to say, well, we just have the generic clothing on hand with different sizes, and we just expect to sell more that way, right? But then that means we have to lower the cost for each customer that way. And design to order, right? So we either said we can have this stuff on hand, or we can have it to order in some different fashion. Environments best suited for efficient and responsive supply chain. We say here are the factors, and then we got efficient supply chains and responsive supply chains. Right, so we say for the factor of demand, efficient supply chains are very, very predictable ones, right? In low forecast area, which are, as opposed to responsive supply chains, which are unpredictable and high forecast errors. Then we got competitive priorities. Right, competitive priorities could be low cost, or consistent quality, or on-time delivery. So either it could be cheap, we could be of high value of quality, or we could be highly efficient in delivering to people when they expect it. Right? And responsive in that competitive priority would be development speed, fast delivery times, customization, value and flexibility, variety, or top quality. All right, and the factor of a new service or a new product introduction, we could say efficient supply chains would be infrequent, right? And responsive could be frequent, right? Efficient, you don't have to introduce a new product constantly, right? Inefficient means you're always trying to keep up by introducing a bunch of new products, but they probably don't sell as much because you're always focusing on the next thing. So we say the contribution margins for each are, for efficient supply chains are low, for responsive supply chains are high, product variety for efficient supply chains are low, whereas responsive supply chains have high product, variety, right? Kind of playing catch up by having a bunch of stuff. All right, we will end off here and come back to supply chain design from make to stock strategy on Wednesday. And whoever's ready on Wednesday to present some of their structure, be greatly appreciated. So let's try to get at least 1 or 2 people to wrap up their structure by Wednesday. All right, have a good afternoon, everyone.